I was born where the ceiling sweats rust, and the floor remembers every body that ever fell on it. I do not remember my mother's face. I remember the sound she made when the siren screamed and the line began to move again. That sound was not a word. It was a calculation. How many seconds she had to push me into the shadows before the overseers noticed she was slow. How many seconds before slow became useless. How many seconds before useless became dead. In the hive, time is not measured in years. It is measured in quotas. My earliest memory is heat, not warmth. Heat that crawls under your skin and never leaves. Heat from the plasma conduits behind the walls. Heat from the press furnaces. Heat from bodies packed too tightly together to fall over when they finally collapse. We sleep sitting up. We learn to sleep standing. We learn to sleep while working, because stopping is a sin, and rest is theft from the Emperor. They gave me a number before they gave me words. The number was stamped onto a thin metal tag and wired around my wrist. It bit into my skin as I grew, and no one ever loosened it. The flesh simply learned to grow around the wire. They told us that pain is weakness leaving the body. They told us the Emperor is watching. They never told us why the Emperor would care. The first thing I learned to assemble was a trigger assembly. The pieces were small, perfect for my hands. The instructor did not speak. He demonstrated once, slowly, then struck the child next to me when she hesitated. Blood fell onto the assembly bench. The parts were still warm when I picked them up. That was when I learned the most important lesson of the hive. Do not look at the dying. Look at the work. The work does not scream. The work does not beg. The work is pure. I became fast because slow children disappear. I became precise because mistakes are heresy. I became silent because silence is safety. When the overseer passed behind me, I did not flinch. Flinching means you are afraid. Fear suggests doubt. Doubt suggests disloyalty. Disloyalty is treason, and treason is punished publicly so the rest of us remember. We all learn to watch without seeing. Food comes once per cycle, a ration block broken into measured portions. Mine is always smaller than the adults. The taste never changes. Bitter protein, metallic fat, a faint chemical sweetness that coats the tongue and makes you thirstier than before. Sometimes there are insects ground into it. Sometimes there are not. No one complains. Complaints require breath, and breath is better spent working. I used to count the other children. I stopped when the numbers stopped staying the same. Some are taken by accidents. A press misfires, a conduit ruptures, an exhaust vent floods a corridor with vapor, so thick you drown standing up. Some are taken for training. Some are taken for punishment. Some are taken because the hive always needs more bodies in places no one comes back from. We call these promotions. I am 8 standard years old when I am allowed to assemble a full las gun. The first time I hold one, I understand something they never said out loud. The weapon fits me. The grip is right. The weight balances against my shoulder like it was waiting for me. I feel a connection then, something close to comfort. This machine will one day decide if I live or die. That makes it more honest than most people I know. At night, if the lights flicker low enough, I imagine the sky. I have never seen it. None of us have. But we hear stories from the older workers, the ones who came from higher levels before they fell. They say the sky is a ceiling that does not press down on you. They say it burns your eyes if you look at it too long. They say there are stars, and those stars belong to the Emperor. I wonder if the Emperor knows how many of us he owns. When I am 9, they teach us how to march. Not because we are soldiers yet, but because marching keeps order. Order prevents panic. Panic slows production. We march between shifts, between benches, between sleeping racks. We march around bodies until they are cleared away. We march past the skull shrines mounted on the walls, each one labeled with crimes I cannot read yet. The lesson is clear anyway. By 10, I know how to field strip a las gun blindfolded. I know how to clear a jam caused by cheap power cells. I know how long a man can scream before his lungs give out. I know how to tell if someone is faking a limp to avoid work. The trick is in the eyes. Real pain dulls them. Fake pain sharpens them, looking for sympathy that does not exist. Friendship is a word I hear once, whispered by a boy who disappears the next day. I do not ask what it means. By 11, the overseers stop calling us children. They call us assets. Assets do not cry. Assets do not hesitate. Assets are fed, expended, and replaced. The hive does not mourn assets. The hive records losses and adjusts quotas. Sometimes our bites pass through our sector on their way to suppress something worse. They are giants in black armor, visors dark, weapons humming with restrained violence. I watch them and feel something unfamiliar tighten in my chest. Not hope. Hope is dangerous, something colder, recognition. One day I will look like that to someone smaller than me. The sermons start soon after. The ecclesiarchy sends a preacher with a voice like grinding stone. He tells us we are blessed. He tells us our suffering feeds the Imperium. He tells us the Emperor suffered more than we ever will, and that makes our pain holy. I believe him, because disbelief is exhaustion, and I am already so tired. When I sleep, I dream of marching through corridors that never end, carrying a lasgun that grows heavier with every step. When I wake, my hands are already moving, assembling, stripping, preparing for a war I have never seen but have always been part of. I am a hive child. I am not innocent. Innocence is something you shed early here, like skin burned away by chemicals you breathe every day. I am useful. I am efficient. I am loyal, because loyalty is survival. And somewhere far above me, beyond layers of steel and prayers and bodies stacked into foundations, the Imperium calls this necessary. By 12, my hands are scarred enough that the overseers stop flinching when they inspect them. Scarred hands mean experience. Scarred hands mean you have not been caught in a machine long enough to be missed. The scars map my life better than any records ever could. A burn from a faulty coil, a slice from a rushed blade swap, a puncture where a power cell vented hot gas straight through skin and bone. I keep working through all of it. Pain is just another background noise, like the hum of generators or the distant screaming that never quite fades. They move me deeper into the manufactorum as my output increases. The air grows thicker there. Each breath feels borrowed. The walls sweat oil instead of rust. Servo skulls drift overhead, their lenses clicking softly as they record our movements. I have learned not to look at them. Being noticed is rarely good. Being recorded means someone higher up might decide you belong somewhere else. Some nights the lights never dim. Those are the nights when quotas are raised without explanation. We work until our vision blurs and our hands shake. Anyone who drops a component is beaten. Anyone who drops twice is removed. I do not know where removed children go. I only know they never come back. They teach us history in fragments, not dates, not causes, just victories. The Emperor conquers. The Emperor endures. The Emperor protects. Every failure is blamed on weakness, never on command. Every loss is glorious, because glory costs nothing when you are not the one bleeding. I listen and nod and memorize the words, because repeating them correctly earns an extra sip of water. At 13, I am issued my first uniform. It is too big. It smells of someone else's sweat and fear. The fabric scratches my skin raw, but I am proud anyway. Uniforms mean transition. Uniforms mean I am no longer just an asset. I am becoming a resource. Resources are deployed. They march us to the firing galleries carved into the lower hive. The targets are silhouettes shaped like men, women, things with too many limbs. We are told all of them want us dead. We are told hesitation is betrayal. The first time I fire a lasgun, the recoil surprises me, but my stance holds. The beam burns clean through the target's chest. There is no blood. I feel disappointed by that. Blood would make it real. The instructors watch closely. They mark our posture, our response time, our breathing. One boy next to me flinches when the gun discharges. He does not get a second shot. They drag him away while the rest of us keep firing. The smell of scorched metal mixes with something sharp and coppery. I do not turn my head. That night, I realize something else has been taken from me. Fear is still there, but it has changed shape. It no longer freezes me, it sharpens me. Fear becomes a tool, just like everything else. By 14, I understand why the hive produces so many weapons. It is not because the Imperium is always winning. It is because the Imperium is always losing somewhere else. Every lasgun I assemble is a promise that someone will die soon. Maybe an enemy, maybe someone like me, born under metal skies and taught to kneel before they could walk. They assign me to maintenance squads next. We crawl through access shafts barely wide enough to breathe. We repair machines older than the records that described them. Sometimes we find skeletons jammed into corners, still clutching tools. No one stops to remove them. We work around the dead. The dead are part of the structure now. I ask a question once. It flips out before I can stop it. What happens if the hive fails? The overseer looks at me for a long moment. Then he smiles, and that is worse than any beating. He tells me the hive cannot fail. It is too important. If something breaks, it will be fixed. If someone breaks, they will be replaced. The Imperium endures, individuals do not. At 15, they let us see the sky. Not the real one. A picked feed projected onto a stained wall. Blue, endless, clean. I feel something twist inside my chest, tight and aching. Some of the others cry. They are punished for it. I do not cry. I memorize the image instead, knowing I will never see it again. Deployment comes soon after. They do not call it conscription. They call it elevation. We are given armor plates that do not quite fit and helmets that smell like old breath. A number is stenciled onto my chest. It is different from the one on my wrist, but it feels heavier. This one will be recorded when I die. The transport is crowded and dark. The engines shake my bones. Someone is praying loudly. Someone else is vomiting. I sit still, last gun across my knees, and think about the first weapon I ever assembled. I wonder where it is now. I wonder if it killed anyone who deserved it. The officer tells us we are lucky. We are going to war. We will see the Emperor's enemies firsthand. We will earn honor. I look at his clean boots and polished insignia and know he will never fire a shot unless someone hands him a pistol and tells him it is ceremonial. The first battle is chaos. Noise, light, screams. The air itself seems to burn. I fire until my power pack empties. Swap it without looking. Fire again. Bodies fall. Some wear uniforms like mine. Some look different enough to make killing easier. I step over the dead because stopping means dying. I do not know how long it lasts. Time dissolves into action. When it ends, the ground is littered with parts of people. The smell is overwhelming. I realize my hands are steady. That frightens me more than anything else so far. Afterward, they count us. Fewer numbers answer. The officer calls it acceptable losses. He says the Emperor is pleased. I look at the faces around me and see something empty settling behind their eyes. We're no longer children of the hive. We are something else now. I survive. Survival feels accidental, like a clerical error that has not been corrected yet. They send us back, eventually. Not all the way home. Just far enough to be useful again. I am assigned to training cadres. The irony is not lost on me. I am barely grown, but I am old enough now to teach others how to hold a weapon, how to breathe, how to ignore the screams. The first child I train has hands even smaller than mine were. She looks at me like I once looked at the instructors. Afraid, hopeful. I crush the hope quickly. It is kinder that way. I tell her the truth the Imperium never speaks aloud. I tell her to be fast. I tell her to be quiet. I tell her not to get attached. I tell her pain is temporary, but duty is forever. She listens. They always do. I am a product of the hive. I am proof that it works. I am still alive, which means the system has not finished with me yet. And somewhere deep beneath layers of steel and prayer, another child is learning to strip a lasgun in 14 seconds. Never knowing that innocence was the first thing the Imperium taught them how to kill. Years stop meaning anything after that. There is only rotation, deployment, return, reassignment. The hive does not care how many times your heart has nearly stopped. It only cares that it keeps beating long enough to be useful again. I age into my armor. It no longer feels borrowed. The plates fit because my body has learned their shape through bruises and healed fractures. My helmet seals with a hiss that sounds like a held breath finally released. I am no longer small enough to crawl inside the narrowest shafts, but I am small enough to be sent where casualties are expected. That is a category all its own. When I am sent back into the underhive as an instructor, the air feels heavier than I remember. Or maybe I have changed. The children line up the same way we once did. Numbers instead of names. Shaved heads, eyes already tired. I recognize the look immediately. It is the look of someone who understands, on some deep level, that their life has already been spent. They are just waiting for the receipt. I show them how to stand, how to hold the lasgun so the recoil does not bruise bone, how to clear a jam without looking down. I do not smile. Smiling suggests mercy. Mercy is a lie that gets people killed. Sometimes one of them asks about the war, not where it is, not why it is happening, just what it feels like. I tell them the truth, because lies make it worse when reality arrives. I tell them it feels loud and bright and endless. I tell them it feels like being reduced to a single action, repeated, until either the enemy stops moving or you do. I tell them survival does not feel like victory, it feels like confusion. They absorb this quietly. Children here are good at that. The hive keeps feeding us into conflicts most people will never hear about. Skirmishes in ash wastes. Boarding actions in lightless corridors. Suppression campaigns against populations that once believed the Imperium might save them. I stopped trying to remember names of places. Names imply individuality. These places are interchangeable. So are the bodies. I kill more efficiently now. That scares me less than it should. There is a moment, years later, when I am standing guard over a shipment of weapons fresh from the same manufacturer where I once worked. I recognize a flaw in one of the power couplings. A small thing, easy to miss. I fix it without thinking. Habit, muscle memory. The officer overseeing the shipment nods in approval. He does not know he has just watched the hive repair itself through me. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I did nothing. If I let the flaw pass. If the weapon failed at the wrong moment. The thought does not last. Thinking like that leads to attention, and attention leads to questions. Questions lead to places worse than death. I am older now. Old enough that the new recruits look at me the way I once looked at the Arbites. Not with admiration, with certainty. I am what happens next. I am proof of the path laid out for them. That is my real function now. Not killing, demonstrating. The sermons still come. Different preachers, same words. They say the Emperor protects. I have seen enough to know what that protection looks like. It looks like armor just thick enough to delay death. It looks like rations measured to keep you alive but never strong. It looks like children raised to replace the dead before their bodies are cold. One cycle, during a brief lull between deployments, I am assigned to oversee a labor shift back in the manufacturing. The benches are the same. The machines are the same. The screams echo the same way off the walls. I stand where an overseer once stood behind me. I catch myself watching hands instead of faces. Small hands, fast hands, bloody hands. One of the children reminds me of myself, not in appearance, in efficiency, in silence, in the way they flinch only after a blow lands, never before. I feel something tighten in my chest again, the same way it did when I first saw the sky. I ignore it. Feelings are a liability. But I remember their number anyway. Later, I see that number crossed out on a slate. Industrial accident. Reallocation. The reason does not matter. I feel nothing then. That frightens me more than grief ever did. I have lived long enough now that survival no longer feels accidental. It feels intentional. Like the Imperium is keeping me alive for a reason I do not yet understand. That realization weighs heavier than any armor. I dream less. When I do, it is not of the sky. It is of corridors filled with children marching in perfect formation, their faces blank, their lasguns held exactly as I taught them. I wake before I can see where they are going. There is no retirement for people like me, no reward waiting at the end. The best outcome is to die usefully, to be recorded as expended in service, to become a number that justifies the next quota increase. I used to think the hive made monsters out of children. I was wrong. The hive makes tools. Monsters imply choice. Tools are simpler. Tools do what they are designed to do until they break. I am still working. Somewhere deep below, a siren screams and a line begins to move again. Somewhere above, an officer signs a deployment order without looking at the names. Somewhere far away, an enemy prepares to die for reasons they were taught as children. And here, in the shadowed arteries of the Imperium, I shoulder my lasgun and wait for the next command, knowing that my life began in a factory, was sharpened in war, and will end the same way everything else in the hive does, used up. Replaced and forgotten. If the Emperor is watching, he has never looked down far enough to see us. But we keep working anyway. I am still alive when many better people are not. That is the quiet truth that settles in you like dust you can never fully wash away. The Imperium does not reward goodness. It rewards endurance. I have endured long enough that my presence itself has become a resource, something to be moved where morale is low and casualties are expected. I am not inspirational. I am inevitable. They send me to pacification zones now, places where the hive has grown sick, where hunger turns into anger and anger turns into heresy. We move through hab blocks stacked like coffins, doorways welded shut from the outside, voxcasters blaring sermons to drown out the sound of boots and gunfire. I know these corridors. I grew up in them. The difference is that this time, I am wearing the armor. The people we face look like ghosts of my past, thin, desperate, armed with tools turned into weapons. They scream about injustice, about stolen children, about lives ground into dust for quotas no one understands. Their words slide off me, not because they are wrong, because understanding them changes nothing. The order comes. We advance. The lasgun does what it was designed to do. Afterward, when the bodies are cleared, I notice small things others miss. A child's shoe under a pile of debris. A ration wrapper folded carefully and hidden like a treasure. A scratched symbol on a wall, half prayer, half threat. The hive speaking to itself in a language made of loss. I file the images away and say nothing. At some point, I stop counting the deployments. They blur together. Different insignia, same screams, same smell of burned flesh and ozone. The only constant is the rhythm of survival. Move, shoot, reload, breathe. When I am wounded, it is patched just enough to send me back out. Medicaid do not waste time on perfection. Functional is enough. I am promoted without ceremony. Rank slides onto me like another layer of grime. With it comes responsibility, which is just another word for being blamed when things go wrong. I give orders now. I watch others obey them. I recognize the moment when their faces harden, when they cross the same line I crossed years ago and do not look back. Sometimes I catch my reflection in polished metal. The face looking back is older than it should be. Lines carved by stress, eyes dulled by too much seeing. I look like an overseer now. The realization makes me nauseous for a moment, then passes. There is no room for self-pity in the Imperium. It wastes time. During a rare lull, I am assigned to escort a shipment of children up hive. Fresh stock. The phrase makes something inside me twist, but I repeat it anyway because it is the correct terminology. The transport is packed, the air stale with fear and recycled breath. The children clutch their numbers like talismans. Some of them look at me with awe, some with hatred, most with nothing at all. One of them asks me if the Emperor is real. The question is soft, almost lost in the engine noise. I do not answer immediately. I think about the manufacturum, about the sky I saw once on a stained wall, about the endless wars fought with weapons built by hands too small to hold them. I tell the child the truth I have learned. I tell them the Emperor is real enough to shape their life, real enough to decide where they will stand and when they will die. That is all that matters. The child nods, satisfied or resigned. It is hard to tell the difference anymore. Years later, when my body finally starts to fail in ways that cannot be easily repaired, they move me again. Advisory roles, training oversight. I become a voice instead of a weapon. My words carry weight now. That's a different kind of danger. Words can shape futures. Futures mean more children on assembly lines, more bodies in armor, more quotas met. I think about refusing once. The thought is almost humorous. Refusal implies alternatives. There are none. Even if I laid down my weapon, the hive would not stock. Someone else would take my place. Someone younger, someone less worn down by memory. I have taught hundreds how to fight, thousands how to endure. I have never taught anyone how to live. In the end, when it comes, death is quiet, not on a battlefield, not in a blaze of glory. A system failure during transit. A pressure seal gives way. The compartment vents into void. Alarms scream. Training kicks in. We seal what we can. Not everyone makes it. I feel the cold before I feel fear. It creeps into my lungs, my bones. My vision narrows. In that moment, as the hive finally loosens its grip, I think of the first lasgun I ever assembled. I think of the child with small, fast hands. I think of a sky I never touched. There is no revelation, no final blessing. Just the understanding that my life was exactly what the Imperium needed it to be. Efficient, expendable, complete. Somewhere, far below, another siren is screaming. Another line is moving. Another child is learning that innocence is a resource best consumed early. The hive endures, and so does the lie that this was ever anything else. There is a moment after the alarms stop when everything becomes very still. Not peaceful, just empty. Sound drains away first, then sensation. Then the idea of self begins to thin, stretched like metal under too much heat. I am aware of this only because the Imperium trained me to be aware of everything until the last possible second. I do not know how long I am gone. When awareness returns, it does not feel like mercy, it feels like correction. I wake in a Medicaid cradle, restraints locked, lights too bright. My chest burns where something has been replaced. My lungs draw air that tastes cleaner than anything I have ever known, and that alone tells me I am not meant to stay here. Real air is for people who matter. This is borrowed time. A tech priest stands over me, red optics adjusting, mechadendrites whispering as they retract from my body. He does not greet me. He recites data, survival probability, resource expenditure, acceptable loss margins. I am informed that I survived decompression because my body had already adapted to poor oxygen levels in the hive. My suffering, cataloged over decades, saved me. The machine logic is flawless. They do not ask if I want to continue. They inform me where I will be assigned next. I am now classified as a veteran asset with experiential value. That phrase follows me. Experiential value. It means my memories are worth more than my body. It means I will be used until even my mind becomes unreliable. They install a regulator at the base of my skull. It helps with focus, with obedience, with sleep. The first time it activates, I understand what true helplessness feels like. Pain you can endure, hunger you can endure. But having your own thoughts corrected mid-formation, mid-sentence, that is something else entirely. I am sent to speak to new intakes across multiple hives. Propaganda with a pulse. I tell my story in fragments approved by the administratum. I speak of duty, of endurance, of honor earned through service. I do not speak of the children crushed by machinery. I do not speak of pacification zones that looked exactly like home. I do not speak of how the Emperor never once needed my belief to take everything from me. They listen anyway, not to the words, to the implication. If someone like me survived, then maybe they can too. Hope sneaks in through cracks like that. The Imperium allows a measured amount. Too much and people ask questions. Too little and they stop moving. After the addresses, the children are escorted away. I never learn their numbers. That is deliberate. Attachment reduces efficiency. Between assignments, I am housed in a hab cell far above the levels where I was born. The walls are cleaner, the lights more stable, the silence heavier. I sleep badly, without constant noise. My mind fills the space with memories I did not authorize. I remember the girl with small hands. I remember the boy who whispered about friendship. I remember the first body I stepped over without slowing down. These memories surface not as guilt, but as data inconsistencies, flaws in the narrative I am supposed to represent. The regulator corrects me when my heart rate spikes. I am old now, old by hive standards. My body creaks when I move. My reflexes are still sharp, but they come with hesitation. A fraction of a second where memory intrudes. That fraction is dangerous. I compensate by becoming more cautious, more methodical. The Imperium approves. Caution prolongs usability. One cycle during an inspection tour, I passed through a manufactorum that mirrors my birthplace so closely it feels staged. Same benches, same machines, same children. One of them glances up at me. Our eyes meet. I see recognition there, not of me, of the future. The overseer moves to strike the child for looking away from their work. I raise a hand without thinking. The overseer freezes. Rank recognizes rank. The blow does not fall. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the line moves again. The child's hands return to the weapon. The system absorbs the anomaly and continues. Later, I am reprimanded. Not severely. Just enough to remind me where the edges are. Compassion is inefficient. Intervention disrupts flow. The lesson is delivered calmly, professionally. I accept it. Acceptance is another reflex I learned early. That night I dream of the sky again. Not the false projection. A real one. Vast, indifferent. I am standing beneath it. Unnumbered, unrecorded. The dream ends before I can feel relief. When my service finally ends, it is not announced. My name is simply removed from active rosters. I am reassigned to archival duty, data review, memory verification. I sit in a dim chamber and cross-check casualty reports against production figures. I am closing the loop, the hive consuming itself with perfect efficiency. I see my own number once, old, faded, listed as still active. There is no space to correct it. Errors like that are harmless. No one checks this far down. Eventually, the regulator fails, quietly, without ceremony. My thoughts come back unevenly, like a limb waking after being numb too long. With them comes clarity sharp enough to hurt. I understand then that the Imperium does not need belief, or loyalty, or even obedience. It needs momentum. It needs bodies that move when pushed and break cleanly when they are no longer useful. I was never special. None of us were. We were raw material shaped into function, and when that function wore out, we were recycled into memory, then into myth, then into nothing at all. If this is confession, there is no one left to hear it. Somewhere, deep in the hive, a child's hands are moving very fast. 14 seconds. 13. 12. The siren is screaming. The line is moving. The Imperium endures, and it will never remember my face. I should have ended there. That would have been efficient, clean, a conclusion that fits neatly into the Imperium's preferred shape of things. But the hive does not stop just because one voice goes quiet, and neither does memory once the regulator is gone. Without it, time feels different, slower, heavier. Each moment stretches long enough for thought to form, and thought is dangerous when you have spent a lifetime being shaped to avoid it. I am still breathing. That means I am still useful, even if no one has updated the ledgers. They forget about me in the archives. Not completely. Just enough. Enough that no one checks my reports closely anymore. Enough that I can sit with the data and see the pattern clearly for the first time. Production spikes after pacification. Casualty reports align perfectly with quota increases. Child intake numbers rise 3 cycles after major engagements. The hive replenishes itself the same way a wound scars over. Thicker, uglier, less flexible. I was never meant to see this from the outside. Perspective is a privilege reserved for those with the power to ignore it. I have neither power nor illusion left, and that makes me dangerous in a way the Imperium does not understand how to measure. Sometimes, when the lights dim and the data scrolls slow, I listen. The hive always makes noise if you know how to hear it. The distant thrum of generators, the muffled clang of machinery, the faint echo of chanting carried through ventilation shafts. It is a heartbeat, artificial, relentless, familiar. I wonder how many of those sounds I helped create. My body fails in small ways now. Hands that once assembled weapons with surgical precision shake when I lift them. My lungs catch when the air is too dry. Pain visits me uninvited and stays longer each time. There is no Medicaid assigned. No one notices. This is what being surplus feels like. I think about leaving once. The thought is absurd. There is nowhere to go. The hive is not a place you escape. It is a condition. Even if I reached the surface, even if I saw the real sky with my own eyes, I would still be what it made me. The hive would just be farther away. One cycle, A data slate arrives on my desk by mistake. Intake projections. New batch. Ages listed. 7, 8, 9. Optimized for dexterity and compliance. I stare at the numbers longer than necessary. Somewhere, right now, someone is being told they are lucky to be chosen. I remember being 8. The weight of the lasgun parts in my hands. The way the world narrowed to speed and accuracy because anything else hurt too much. I remember believing that if I was good enough, fast enough, quiet enough, the pain might stop. It never does. It just changes shape. I do something small then, insignificant by Imperial standards. I alter a line of data, 1 digit, a minor discrepancy in allocation, enough to delay transport by a cycle, maybe 2. It will be corrected eventually. The system always corrects itself, but for a brief moment the line will not move as fast. I do not tell myself this matters. I am not foolish enough for that. I only tell myself it is something. Nothing happens immediately. There is no alarm, no punishment. The hive absorbs the error like it absorbs everything else. I exhale, slow and careful, as if I have stolen something precious. In the following cycles, I make more changes. Always small, always deniable. A shipment rerouted, a quota misfiled, a requisition delayed. I am not stopping the machine. I am introducing friction. The irony is not lost on me. My entire life was about eliminating inefficiency. Now I am becoming it. Eventually, someone notices. They always do. An administrative official questions my reports. His tone is polite, curious, predatory. I answer carefully, truth wrapped in acceptable phrasing. I have been doing this since I was a child. He leaves unconvinced but without proof. That night I sleep deeper than I have in years. No dreams, just darkness. When they come for me, it is quiet. 2 figures in plain uniforms, no weapons drawn. That tells me everything I need to know. This is not an arrest. It is a correction. They lead me through corridors I have never seen, deeper than archives, closer to the hive's core. The air grows warmer, the noise louder, the heartbeat faster. We stop before a door, marked with symbols I recognize from old sermons. Purity, compliance, renewal. Inside, the light is harsh and white. A chair waits in the center of the room. Restraints open, inviting. They ask me if I am tired. It's the first real question anyone has asked me in decades. I consider lying. Habit urges me to say no, to present endurance as virtue. Instead, I tell the truth. I say yes. I say I have been tired since I was a child. They nod, satisfied. Tired things break. Broken things can be fixed. As they secure the restraints, I realize something with absolute clarity. This is not punishment. This is maintenance. The hive repairing a component that has begun to malfunction. I do not struggle. I never learned how. As the machinery hums to life around me, as memories begin to blur at the edges, I hold on to one thought with everything I have left. Not rebellion, not hope, just witness. Somewhere, a child is working too fast to feel their hands anymore. Somewhere, an overseer is watching a line move. Somewhere, a quota is being met. And for a fraction of a second, before the hive takes me back into itself completely, I remember that innocence was not lost. It was taken. Then the hum grows louder, and the line keeps moving. The light eats the edges of me first, not all at once, piece by piece, like corrosion spreading along a wire. The chair hums with a patient certainty, a machine that knows it will outlast me. I have been strapped into worse things before. Pain is familiar, erasure is not. They call it renewal. That word slides into my thoughts as something cold and practiced. Renewal means memories refiled, responses recalibrated, deviations smoothed down until they fit again. I have watched others come out of rooms like this with their eyes clearer and emptier, their voices steady in ways that meant something had been taken out and replaced with something lighter. The machine begins its work. At first it shows me my life, the way the Imperium prefers it told, ordered, sanitized. A child saved from chaos by structure. A worker elevated through merit. A soldier forged in righteous war. A veteran granted the honor of continued service. The images flicker, bright and clean, stripped of smell and weight. I almost accept them. Almost. Then something resists. It is small. Smaller than belief. Smaller than rebellion. It is the memory of my hands at 8 years old, shaking not from fear, but from exhaustion, trying to meet a quota that did not care if I lived. The machine pushes. The memory digs in. Pain blooms. White-hot. Precise. The kind of pain designed not to damage the body, only to convince the mind. My jaw locks. My breath stutters. Somewhere, a tech priest notes the resistance and increases output by a fraction. They are very good at their work. Faces blur past. Overseers, officers, children. The line. Always the line. I feel myself slipping, thoughts stretching thin, identity dissolving into approved fragments. This is how it happens. Not violently, gently, efficiently. And then, unexpectedly, something breaks through. Not defiance, not courage. Anger. Not loud, not explosive. Old anger, compressed anger. Anger that has had decades to settle into something dense and unmovable. Anger at the word necessary. Anger at the phrase acceptable losses. Anger at a system that taught me to be proud of surviving what should never have been done to me. The machine does not understand anger without an object. It searches for a target and finds none it can isolate. The feedback spikes. Alarms chirp softly. Adjustments are made. For a moment, the restraints bite deeper. I taste blood. Then the world fractures. I do not come out of the chair clean. They know this immediately. I can tell by the way they do not meet my eyes. The way their voices stay too calm. They have removed enough, but not everything. Something remained that should not have. A shadow, a residue. I am no longer fit for correction cycles, nor am I fit for reassignment. I am unstable, inconsistent, a liability that requires categorization. They choose the cheapest option, exile downward. They strip my rank, my access, my ident tags. What remains is a body that still breathes and a mind that no longer fits anywhere useful. I am escorted, not dragged, back into the lower hive, released into a sector marked for labor reclamation. The irony is precise enough to hurt. No one recognizes me. That is the strangest part. I walk corridors I once knew blindfolded, now guided by instinct more than memory. The air is worse here, thicker, familiar. The noise settles into my bones like it always did. The hive welcomes me back the only way it knows how, by not noticing me at all. I take work where it is offered, carrying, sorting, cleaning things no one wants to look at. My hands remember what to do, even when my mind stumbles. The body always remembers. That is how the Imperium wins. Children pass me on their way to the lines. Some stare, some do not. I see myself in all of them and none of them. I want to speak. I want to warn them. I say nothing. Words without power are just noise, and noise gets you noticed. Days blur, cycles pass. I am older now than most people here ever get to be. That alone marks me as strange. One cycle, I am assigned to clear a jam in a secondary assembly line. The machine is ancient, temperamental. It snarls when approached. I kneel beside it without thinking, hands moving on instinct. A child stands nearby, watching me work with wide eyes. "You're fast," they say. The words hit harder than any blow. I finish the repair and step back. The line resumes. The child returns to their station. Before they turn away, they look at me again. "How long do you have to do this?" they ask. I open my mouth. The answer the hive taught me rises first. "Forever. Until you break. Until you are replaced." Instead, something else comes out. "I don't know," I say. It is the first honest uncertainty I have spoken out loud in my entire life. The child nods, as if that makes sense. Maybe it does. That night, as I lie against a warm pipe and listen to the hive breathe, I understand something with brutal clarity. The Imperium did not fail to erase me completely. It simply did not think it needed to. I am no threat. I command nothing. I inspire no one. I am a single, worn component returned to the lowest level of the machine. By every metric that matters, I am already gone, and yet, I remember. I remember the price of innocence. I remember the efficiency with which it was collected. I remember that none of this was inevitable, only repeated until it felt that way. The hive sleeps. The line will move again soon. Sirens will scream. Children will work too fast. I close my eyes and wait for the sound. Still alive. Still here. Still remembering. And in the Imperium of man, that is the closest thing to defiance a hive child is ever allowed to have. The siren comes back the way it always does. Sudden, violent, impossible to ignore. It slices through sleep, through thought, through whatever fragile thing might have been growing inside me. The hive does not allow gentleness for long. Gentleness wastes time. I rise with the others, bodies moving because they must. No one speaks. Speech implies energy better spent elsewhere. We file into the corridor, the line forming itself without instruction. Even here, even now, the rhythm remains. The hive does not forget its lessons, and neither do we. Work changes from cycle to cycle. Some days it is assembly again. My hands slip back into old patterns so easily it is frightening. The motions return faster than memory. Strip, align, secure, test, pass it down the line. 14 seconds feels slow now. I finish in 12 and force myself to slow down. Speed attracts attention. Other days it is reclamation. We sort what remains after accidents, after raids, after structural failures that were logged as acceptable. Salvage the metal, salvage the weapons, leave the flesh. Flesh is abundant. I stop trying to measure time. Age becomes theoretical. My body aches constantly, but it still functions. That is all that matters. When it stops functioning, the hive will take note. Until then, I am invisible. Children cycle through the lines faster than before. I notice it because I know what fast looks like. I know what happens when the intake rate rises without corresponding increases in food or rest. The Imperium is preparing for something. It always is. Sometimes, I hear distant thunder that is not machinery, artillery, far above. The wars never stop. They only move closer or farther away. When they move closer, quotas increase. When they move farther, quotas still increase, because replenishment is cheaper than repair. I begin to understand that my survival has never been about luck. It has been about timing. I was always in the right place to be used, never important enough to be protected, never expendable enough to be discarded quickly. I existed in the most efficient space possible. One cycle, a collapse seals off part of our sector. The air thins, lights flicker, panic threatens, but panic is quickly beaten out of those who show it. We keep working until the order finally comes to evacuate. Not everyone makes it out. The door seals behind us with people still on the wrong side. No one screams. They know better. Later, as we rest against the bulkhead, catching what little breath we can, a child beside me asks a question without looking at me. Did it used to be worse? I think carefully. The hive does not like comparisons. Yes, I say. They nod, accepting it without relief. Worse means survivable. Worse means this is normal. That is how the hive wins. Not through cruelty alone, but through normalization. Pain becomes routine. Death becomes background noise. Survival becomes a temporary condition you do not plan around. I feel myself thinning over time, not fading, wearing down, like a tool that has been sharpened too many times. There is less of me now, but what remains is hard. I stop dreaming entirely. One day, a shipment arrives from above. New weapons, new armor, new insignia. I recognize my work in them. Small adjustments I learned to make decades ago, still present, still replicated. I touch a lasgun casing and feel a strange, distant pride. Not in what it will do, but in the fact that my hand shaped something that endured longer than I probably will. The officer overseeing the delivery steps past me without seeing me. He is young, clean, confident. He speaks of duty and readiness and the Emperor's will. I have heard these words in so many voices that they blur together. He does not notice the old hive worker standing close enough to hear his breath. When the shipment moves on, the corridor feels emptier than before. My body begins to fail more noticeably after that. My vision blurs at the edges. My hands cramp mid-task. Once, I collapse. Not dramatically, just a quiet folding in on myself. The line steps around me until someone drags me clear so production can resume. I wake hours later in a corner, given water and nothing else. I am still alive. That means the hive has decided I am still worth the space. I understand then that there will be no moment of meaning at the end. No revelation, no justice. Just a gradual reduction of function until I no longer meet minimum requirements. That knowledge does not crush me. It steadies me. Because without an ending to wait for, every moment becomes the same. And sameness is something I know how to endure. I watch the children more closely now, not with hope, with recognition. I see which ones will last. I see which ones will disappear quietly. I see myself replicated in 100 small ways. Once, when an overseer is distracted, I slow a child's hands by guiding them just slightly off rhythm. Not enough to draw attention, enough to save their fingers from a misaligned press. The child looks at me, confused. I shake my head once. They never know why. That is enough. In the end, when it comes, it is as small as everything else. A cough that will not stop. A weakness that deepens too quickly. I lie down near a warm conduit and do not get back up. The siren sounds. The line moves. No one notices that one more number has stopped answering. My last thoughts are not of the Emperor. They are not of war. They are of hands. Small hands. Moving too fast. Learning too early. If there is a lesson in my life, the Imperium will never record it. If there is meaning, it exists only in memory, and memory is fragile here. The hive will endure. The line will move, and somewhere right now, a child is being told they are lucky to be useful. That is the truth of it. That is the brutal life of a hive child, and it does not end. The siren screams again, it always does, but this time I do not rise. The line forms without me. Boots shuffle past, hands take my place. Somewhere, a supervisor marks a discrepancy that will be corrected by the next cycle. I am already becoming a rounding error. A hive does not pause to acknowledge endings. It only recognizes output. When a component fails, it is removed. When a body stops moving, it is stepped over. Nothing personal, nothing cruel, just efficient. I feel the warmth of the conduit against my back, steady and indifferent. The same heat that raised me, the same heat that consumed everyone I ever knew. The hive does not hate us. Hate would require attention. We are beneath that. I think dimly of the first weapon I ever assembled, of how carefully my hands moved, of how proud I was when I met my quota. I think of the child I slowed down, just once. I think of how small that act was, and how it still feels heavier than everything else I ever did. If the Emperor is watching, this is the moment he looks away. The lights flicker. Somewhere far above, a battle is being fought by people who were once children like me. Somewhere far below, a new intake is arriving, eyes wide. Hands clean, innocence still intact for a few more minutes. They will learn fast. They always do. The hive exhales, the machinery hums. The line keeps moving. I am not remembered. I am not recorded. I am not missed. I was born to work. I worked. I was used. I am finished. And tomorrow, another child will stand where I once stood, learning to strip a las gun in 14 seconds, believing, just for a moment, that if they are good enough, fast enough, quiet enough, the pain might stop. It won't. This is not a tragedy. This is not a failure. This is how the Imperium survives. This is the brutal life of a Warhammer 40K hive child. And it never ends.